Official transfer of power moments away, right? So what will the first 100 days in office look like for President-elect Joe Biden?
Joining us from D.C. to talk more about that is political and social strategist Kristal Knight. Kristal, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
All right, first off, it's snowing here in New York City, not weather-wise, but what's it like in D.C. right now? What's the climate like, especially after the insurrection? I'm sure it's vastly different today.
Great question. It's a very somber tone. I think folks are excited about the inauguration, but yesterday I actually did a bike ride downtown just to check out plans and what it looks like, and it actually looks like a military town. You cannot get close to the Capitol at all for probably at least 2 or 3 mile radius. Literally the entire perimeter of the Capitol, the National Mall, from D Street, which is at the top of Pennsylvania Avenue, all the way down to 17th Street, where the monuments and the Lincoln Memorial is. No one can really break into that perimeter. It's literally cordoned off, lots of gates, lots of military police presence, but it appears that they're doing the best that they can to make sure that there isn't another attempt at an insurrection or a riot.
I mean, just think about what you're saying right there, the words you're using with the perimeters and the security, the increased security, the presence of the National Guard, 25,000 members of the National Guard, just gives you a sense of what the Biden administration is coming into on this January 20th. What will President Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris need to do to really bring some unity now to this country?
Well, I think the first thing, before we can unite the country, we have to have accountability for the folks who attempted this coup. I think that's one of the things that we saw in the House last week with the leadership of Nancy Pelosi actually going ahead and impeaching former President Donald Trump. And without accountability, there can be no unity. And so it's really important that we hold people accountable in this country who do dangerous activity and who participate in dangerous activity. And it starts with leadership at the top.
Yeah, you talk about accountability. Let's get into these first 100 days. What do you think they're going to be like, and how much accountability is going to be taking place?
Well, I think the first 100 days we'll see President Biden issue a 100-day mask mandate, really attempt to vaccinate as many Americans as possible. He's already stated that he plans to vaccinate over 100,000 Americans. I think we'll see a reverse of the Muslim ban, which was a very shock to the country when President Trump took office 4 years ago. So I think we'll see a lot of bold moves, a lot of presidential proclamations that he'll make within the first 100 days, really to reestablish what this country is about and reestablish our political dominance.
100 million doses in 100 days is the vow. That is something Dr. Fauci said right here on the Pick 7 Morning News is doable. So there needs to be then some kind of aggressive change in vaccination distribution, right? So, and talk to me a little bit about how President-elect Biden right now could really reach into some underserved urban and rural communities when it comes to the vaccines as well.
Well, another great point. I think one of the ways that he can reach into urban and underserved communities is really making sure that the vaccine is distributed at places where people frequent. So for instance, grocery stores. People go to the grocery store every single week. And so if you have a place set up inside of a grocery store, that becomes a low barrier to entry for folks to go in and get vaccinated. Post offices are another location where maybe they can at least set up inside or outside or someplace adjacent. Banks as well. These are all places that people frequent. No matter what community you live in, these are places that you have access to weekly, and that become easier.
I want to take a shift now from the vaccine to the economy. This new administration is going to have its work cut out for them, getting this economy up and running in the midst of a pandemic. How are they even going to begin to do that?
Well, I think the first thing that this administration can do is make good on its promise for the stimulus checks. The best way to fuel this economy is if people have money to spend. So if we don't have money to spend as Americans, it's hard to make sure that small businesses can stay afloat. And so the $2,000 that President Biden talked about during the campaign trail, he should make good on that in the first 100 days. But Kristal,
some would argue that $2,000 is just a Band-Aid. People need a lot more.
It's true, but I think we know someone who's been affected negatively by the pandemic. If you've lost your job, you can't afford to pay your rent. You can't afford to pay your rent. You can't afford to buy food and live. And so any assistance that the government can provide is helpful. Should there be more provisions put in place? Absolutely. And we should expect that this president will do that. But I think it definitely starts with boosting the economy with a stimulus check for people who are in need right now. Americans cannot continue to afford to wait for Congress to act and for the Senate to make decisions about getting them money that they desperately need.
Kristal, appreciate your voice and your time this morning. There is a lot to
Absolutely.
talk about, but we're simply out of time. But appreciate you being here this morning.
Thank you, Kristal.
Thank you for having me.